Welcome back, everybody. The NFL games for this week are finally over, and just in time for you to tune in and see us tonight here on the Tuesday night episode of Getting Defensive. First Take Tuesdays, brought to you as always by Gridiron Ratings. I'm your host, Kraig. With me as always, we have James and Gary, and back again. Glad to have him, Johnny the Greek. Johnny, how did your week 15 treat you?
Not gonna lie, easiest fantasy week I've had in a long time, and it was simply due to my superpower, which is pay attention, don't make mistakes, let everyone else do that, and worked out great.
Glad to hear it, James.
How about for you guys?
Yeah, how do you do, James?
I'm going to probably piggyback off of Johnny a good amount today, and I'm going to say the exact same thing. Easiest week all year. I had a good amount of buys, and the leagues that I didn't have a buy, I won. And I won those relatively handily. It's weird to just kind of already prep the last week for this week and just kind of roll with it, and everything actually good happens. I know there was a lot of devastation among the offensive community this past week. But for me, I didn't really hit it that hard, so I'm pretty happy.
And the man himself, the legend, the IDP tipster, Gary. Doesn't sound like your week went as well as these two fellows here.
Nah, it went okay. I mean, I'm in the playoffs in all my leagues, so the one I wanted to win, I just lost by 2 points, and that's a money league. So, as far as the other, I had a bye in the other. I lost in my third one to you last week, so that was already off the table. But as far as all the tipster leagues on Sleeper, I made the playoffs, had a bye and won. Tell you the truth, I have not even looked at the score. I think I was losing one of them. So, I'm hanging in there. I'm doing all right. I like those money leagues, man. I like to win that, So that's really my depression by 2 points. I'm hoping for a stat correction. Never know. The game just ended. I needed Ernest Jones. He performed. He performed really well. He scored 17 points, and he was projected 14 and a half or 15 or something. So Penny let me down a little bit. I could have used that touchdown, and they gave Dallas instead, but I don't know. And unless Penny got hurt or something, I've been running around doing stuff. But no, overall, good week. It was rough, though. I mean, I had Jalen Hawkins in, didn't have nothing to lose. Had between him and Xavier Woods, that's this league I just lost, but he didn't lose me anything. I would have had Xavier Woods in there. They both scored 4 points in the league. So I didn't like Woods' matchup. I figured swing for the fence with him. And then, there's a lot of people out there. I got screwed by Josh Woods because I didn't pay attention and get him out of my damn lineup. I was busy, I guess. But either way, lack of concentration there. That's my screw up. Cost me a little, but
that'll happen. It happens to the best of us every once in a while, especially if you start getting in those,
got to reach
8 different leagues and stuff when you're running around. If you're in the playoffs and all of them, that's stressful.
Yeah, I had COVID situations, and losing Hopkins didn't help. Luckily, I was in buy on that one, though.
Talking Hopkins, would you like to dive into the dirty O right away off the bat here, Gary? Or
no,
you good?
Not whatsoever.
I figured I'd ask you. You brought it up, but
no, I'm good. Thanks, Craig. I appreciate the offer.
Yeah, I mean, you bring it up. I want to just make sure that we're covering all our bases here for you. Yeah. James, not switching over to the dirty O, but sounds like you want to talk to us about next year, perhaps.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal because every year you play football, and then after the football ends, you wait, and then you build anticipation, and eventually next year happens, and you're very excited, and you want to get going. Well, right now today, unless you're, one of those lucky final 2 or in some wacky leagues, maybe the final 4, next year's already started. Right now, it is next year. So what you can do right now, which is a real quiet thing that doesn't get a lot of hype right now because people are talking about their championship level rosters, is you can make moves in your dynasty leagues. You can go add people today for people that you think are likely to not matter nearly as much as they did this year today. So you can make transactions. You can go add some rookies. You can go add some second-year players. You can create turnover and shoot a lottery shot right now versus having to wait. So in leagues where you have kickers and team defenses in addition to your IDPs, well, you can cut those and go and use those roster spots. That's a generally well-known and kind of not that crazy of a thought. But also at the same time, a lot of people still need to hear this because they might not necessarily be thinking this way, and they need to understand that you can do this on the IDP side. You can go and look and see who these upcoming free agents are and go, oh, that team drafted a linebacker in the third round last year, and now their starter is going to be a free agent. Might be a good idea to go and add that guy. Even if it doesn't work out, you're still playing for next year. This is a game where if you're in a deep and competitive league, you need to always be playing. Yes, during the offseason, there's a lot less to do, but if you enjoy football, which I think pretty much anyone who listens to fantasy football podcasts enjoys, then you should be interested in making these type of moves, and you should be paying attention, and you shouldn't check out just because your team lost. So my biggest thing is right now, next year is this year. Right now, you're in next year. So go make some moves. Go do some research. Go find some dynasty stashes that you like, and just go get it done. Keep playing. The season isn't ever over. It just moves on to the next one.
James, even if you're in redraft leagues with the same people, generally speaking, year to year, is that a strategy that you try to employ, looking at general draft strategies and taking note of that for those individuals?
Absolutely. I'm sure all of us have played in a league, especially a home league, where you have somebody who's a homer. You have your Patriots fan guy who's every year I get Tom Brady. Well, you can account for that, and you can adjust your draft strategy however so. Back in the day, it was always snake drafts where there was just not a lot of ability to adjust that heavily. But now lots of teams do auctions. Lots of leagues do auctions. It's very easy to understand where people are going to go and use that to your benefit. Understand, oh, this guy's going to sell overvalue. Do I like it? Do I not? Et cetera, et cetera. And while you obviously can't go and make ads this year for redraft leagues, you can still understand and pay attention and see how guys operate. But that's really a full season-long kind of knowledge that you're accruing versus just doing it at the end of the year.
Good advice. It's always, no matter even at the end of the year here that we're coming to, always an opportunity to learn and try to get an advantage for next season. So great advice there. Moving into our injuries, we didn't get hit nearly as hard on the IDP side, thankfully, as the offense did with injuries this week. But we did have some. Josh Woods did leave for the limited time he played with a shoulder injury, and I didn't see any real update on that. But Alex Anzalone is on IR. I think he had a shoulder injury as well. So he will be out of the equation going forward here, as will Rayshawn Jenkins. He was placed on IR with an ankle injury for the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive backfield. Quinnen Williams left early again, and it's interesting to me to see if they actually just shut him down for the year, because it's the second game in a row that he left with a shoulder injury, and it's just sort of questionable. I would, if he wants to play, maybe they'll put him out there. But I guess if I was in charge, I would just kind of protect my asset and not let him get hurt and worse. Yeah. On the same team, Elijah Riley, he had a neck and concussion issues, and he's doubtful. He was scarily taken off on a stretcher. And then Talanoa Hufanga for the 49ers, he left with a knee injury. He didn't practice today, so it's unclear as to the extent of that. But the 49ers secondary and linebacker core continues to be banged up heavily, which always leaves some opportunity there. So, and Tech McKinley was the other one. He tore his Achilles, and we'll be talking about that a little bit. Not a huge name, but that Browns defensive line is one that's being hit hard too. So we're going to jump into sort of another general strict. Go ahead, Gary.
Let's hit on that Josh Woods Anzalone thing. So Anzalone's actually on IR. See, Josh Woods hurt his shoulder. So right now we're looking at what Mabin and Derek Barnes.
Yeah, Mabin saw in like 96%. Barnes was like the other inside linebacker, like 60-ish.
Yep.
Yeah, the matchup against Atlanta this week is, it's solid enough. I don't think there's a huge amount of production to go around on paper, but the only guy that I'm trusting, because I know that everybody there's people that want Barnes to succeed, and I wouldn't mind it either, but he's kind of risky, and I don't think that he only played 60% of the snaps, something like that. What was it?
Right. Yeah. Reeves Maven's been solid all year. He's had a job all year. Yeah.
Yeah. Even when he was only getting the 60 or 70, and all of a sudden he jumps up and he's got the 90, 95. I mean, he's, everybody's banged up. Anzalone's gone. I mean, realistically, I think your only real option, if you have to go here, is maybe he might be on the waiver wire. Might be. You know.
Yeah, I hyped up Woods pretty heavily last week, and that was a big fall
Man,
flat.
all of us did. There were a bunch
Exactly.
of us. I don't know, Johnny, how you felt about him, but I broke my golden rule, James. And
As did I.
Rule is the three thumb rule, though, whatever. 3 weeks in a row. I mean, he had only gotten 2.
Yep.
But I was in a situation I went ahead and I had to play that. So I felt that I had to play that.
And to that, all season we've been saying what's going on in Detroit. Who's starting this week? Where's things going? Anzalone was solid. We kept waiting for someone else to maybe rise up and surpass him. Obviously, we all think that could have been Barnes. But the reality of the situation is it's not a good linebacking core. It's not a productive linebacking core. No one there has great elite talent. They're all just guys. And I got my hand stuck in the cookie jar last week thinking Woods could rise up.
Yeah.
And
Me too.
To go in on our main topic that I started with, it's about learning. So I put my hand in that cookie jar once. I got swatted really hard. I'm not going to go back in there again. I'm going to say, you know what? Derek Barnes can't start over any of these street free agents. The Lions suddenly pull an excellent win out against a great team at home out of nowhere where they don't get any kind of just volume and production by default. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to continue avoiding them like I avoided them every other week. And if I get burned by somebody else, I get burned by somebody else.
Like we said early on there, James, or you said, always able to learn. Sometimes you reach in the cookie jar and there's not cookies in there. There's something you don't want to be grabbing at. So, all righty. But sticking with that sort of learning topic tonight here, we wanted to dive into just this whole situation with COVID. I know we've talked about a little bit every week this year probably, but high turnover in terms of starting lineups and then fantasy lineups for guys, given the situation going on here. Gary, do you have any sort of specific strategies you're looking at or things that you're employing to sort of keep yourself organized and on top of things so you don't fall prey to getting your hand in the cookie jar and finding nothing?
Well, I'll take it from a redraft perspective. I'll go the easy way. Be flexible. Don't worry about it. You're right here knocking on the door. So if you've got a good player and he's on COVID list or something, try. Don't be scared to drop somebody you're not going to be playing this week if you can't. And I'm talking deeper formats. Don't be afraid because next week, odds are you could probably pick somebody back up if you need to. I guess what I'm trying to say is, in redraft, you're going for the money. If Landon, or if say you got a name, say Buda Baker, he's on COVID. Make sure that you have, if you got to drop another linebacker, let that guy float out there, pick up a DB that's just as good as Baker and have him backed up. Don't depend on Baker's backup player to do it. Don't worry about what you're dropping out there or that somebody might be able to pick him up. In most leagues and redraft leagues, you can't pick a guy up once he's dropped. Some you can, some you can't, but don't worry about it. Protect yourself and be prepared because if you sleep on it, you just never know what's going to happen. They're last minute scrambling. I mean, unless you're one of these people that keep your phone 24 hours a day in your hand, just make sure that you back yourself up and get in there.
Johnny, any sort of particular advice or strategies you employ to just deal with this craziness right now?
Yeah, I like what Gary said. It's the opposite of diminishing returns right now. So as people are exiting playoffs, most commissioners lack them from making moves. So you've got fewer people grabbing those guys that come available each week. So like Gary said, don't be afraid to drop someone. There are fewer people that can pick that person up the week after and the week after that. So that's a good strategy. On Twitter, NFL beat writers list. Follow that.
Yep.
Follow that. That's the golden rule. That will tell you things that will save your butt, like very often.
All right, I'll write that down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's worth its weight in gold. It's one list that has every beat writer for every NFL team, and they just come
Not
through.
What I was thinking.
Yeah,
you
it just
still got to
comes
hunt it down. Well, I hunt it down now. So
no, you don't need to. It's just a list. It's a Twitter list. You'll find it. Yeah, NFL beat writers. Very, very good information. And it helps you stay out in front of these weird things that happen, like with the Zach Cunningham stuff this week. That came up a few hours before kickoff. I was like, I better back out of like everything Tennessee linebacker wise, because this looks bad. And it was. So, stuff like that. Set alarms, track inactives, make your waiver wire moves, circle back on your roster over and over again, have backup plans. That's all you can do.
Unfortunately, I was doing my honey-to-do list type stuff Sunday morning.
Don't get married. Don't get married.
I've spent so much time doing this, I'm doing this a lot. So, sometime that list has to be done. I'm thinking, okay, Sunday, just answer questions. And I missed out on some key things Sunday morning that cost me. Can't do it, folks. You got to be 100%.
James, anything else you want to add besides marital advice for Gary, perhaps? Or
I could probably speak all day to that one, but I won't. I will say this though. Initially, when I saw this as a topic, my response was going to be very simple. I was going to say, no, there's no strategy. Just hope you don't get any players who catch COVID, and if you do, react to it. But then I thought about what I actually do, and I'll talk about the dirty O for a second here, Gary. So please close your ears. But I have a league where I had to decide between Rashard Penny and Jeff Wilson at a flex spot for my wild card game. I was really at a toss-up between the two, didn't really know which way I wanted to lean, and ultimately I picked Jeff Wilson specifically because his game was on Sunday and not Tuesday. If there were any sort of COVID implications that showed up on Tuesday, I didn't want to have to deal with that in Rashard Penny. I wanted to have my Sunday guy locked in, and if something shows up, Penny's my fallback plan, and not vice versa. And that's something I just did without really thinking or strategizing with it. It's just what I felt was the safest and best way to ensure that I get some sort of points in my matchup. Likewise, as we're heading into this next week, if you see teams starting to get COVID cases, you know what you should probably do. Make sure you have a backup, even if you're cutting someone who doesn't necessarily fit that position or someone you don't want to send to the waiver wire. It's kind of best to do that because right now is when you actually can win your league. So if you have to cut someone and it backfires and it doesn't work, well, you are doing that with a very high percentage of ability to win your league. This isn't week 4. This isn't week 6. You're making decisions that have max results in terms of one singular decision on getting you a league championship. So when you're making these, understand that a cut today hits a little bit differently to your roster than a cut early in the season. So I think there kind of is a little bit more to understand that, when something happens, you need to be reactionary. I'm not one of those people who has my phone by my hip and is always on doing stuff. I'm much a set it and try and forget it. I don't like to wake up on Sunday morning and focus on fantasy. That was one of the driving forces that got me to reduce my teams. So if you're like me and you don't want to do that, you should kind of pay attention to kickoff times. If you've got a Sunday night guy, you should probably go at another Sunday night guy. Even if they're not a big starter and they're widely available, go grab them so you have someone on your bench ready to go. Because most leagues, you can't just go and add them and then cut someone who's already kicked off.
I don't know how people want to deal with all this COVID situation that are playing in 30 or 40 leagues. Could you imagine that? I mean, I couldn't imagine if I had the COVID back when I did that. Gee whiz, you spent that whole hour or two running because, if you had a guy out, you usually owned him in like 10 leagues or something, and you had to figure out what league and go through it all and find the guy. So I can imagine in this whole COVID situation. Oh, funny little thing, I had to look. I wanted to see it as praying. I seen Ernest Jones get a tackle towards the end of the game. So I was praying for a stat correction or an ad on MFL, and I just got to looking here, and lo and behold, they took a point away.
Oh.
So I got 199 to 202.
Well, in fairness, he should have had a pass interference that he got a pass deflection on. So
yeah. Check this out. My average, I think both of our averages, me and the guy I was going against, I think they're both like 260 or something. So we both had down weeks. It was that kind of a contest. You know what I mean? It just, both of us is top leaderboard and points in the league and shit like that, So excuse my language, folks. Occasionally I do let one slip. All right, I'm done talking. No more video.
All right, we'll move on to some specific situations we have here tonight. We could spend the whole night on COVID, but we've spent enough of our time so far in terms of fantasy football this week on how it relates with Tuesday games, clearly. So, guy we talked about last week sort of had a down week this past week. Divine Diablo with the Las Vegas Raiders. This past week, he was down from 79% to 61%. He only had 2 solos and 2 assists. This coming week, Week 16 is against Denver. James, I know we talked about the whole trusting people maybe sooner than we had in prior situations due to everything going on this year. Do you still have any faith in Divine coming up this week if you need him?
I mean, he lost like an 18% snap share, which is, kind of big. It's not gigantic, but it's not a positive trend that we wanted. He went from about 80 to about 60. But if there was ever a week where I go, hey, a slight negative downturn is not that crazy, it's probably this week with all of the COVID implications that happened with that team. I don't know what their strategy was. I didn't watch the game, but I'm not that devastated to see him get a slight downturn. I really don't know, again, what the implications were. I still like him as a long-term asset. Do I want to start him this week? No, I really don't. But, by and large, we're talking about leagues where if you're still alive and you're considering Divine Diablo to get in your lineup and start, you've got to be in a very unique league, because if you're in a deep enough league, he should be rostered by now because he's a rookie who had playing time. And if you're not in a deep league and you're considering him, why? You probably have better options on your waiver wire just because there's just other options as things slow down and in general teams stop making transactions once they're out. So I'm kind of in a little, I don't know what to say about him in terms of long-term, yes, short-term, no. You probably don't want to start him. If you're forced to start him, it's probably because you don't have any other options.
Honey, how you feeling about Mr. Diablo since we didn't have you on last week to talk about him?
Yeah, a lot of people like the dual eligibility in Yahoo and Sleeper. That's his big appeal. And I've been reading some Raiders stuff the last couple of weeks. He's straight up displaced Littleton, and it was a shoulder injury that knocked him out early this week. So he should have been in for every snap. So I believe that's what happened. But it's funny because I saw that, and then I went to look up the injury and see, like, how bad is this? There's nothing there. Yeah. There's not even a cue on him. So it's like it didn't happen, but it did. So very strange. I can't get any information on it, so I don't know what the hell's going on. I do know, though, that Raiders Wire said he's displaced Littleton. So that's interesting. What's got my curiosity more than that, though, is if Perryman's out again, we get KJ Wright. We got 100% of snaps at KJ Wright this week. I would much rather have KJ Wright.
He played 75% of the snaps last week. So
Right. And we know
we
know what KJ Wright's capable of if he gets the snaps. Like, give me that, please.
Yeah, the Diablo did the same thing with the 3-week rule, and I flushed that down. It just fumbled everywhere. So I deserved to lose by 3 points in that league because I had. No, wait a minute. I didn't have him in there. I had Jalen Hawkins. That's right. I apologize. Ooh. I think I played Debo in most of my sleeper leagues. They ain't for cash. What the hell? But still, at the same time, I liked what James had to say, and I have to agree with that. I mean, at this point, I think he hit the nail on the head.
All right. We'll move on here. We're going to go to the Browns. I'd mentioned them before. So we know that the Browns had a whole slew of COVID problems when they faced the Raiders this past week. Their defensive line in particular has been hit with a number of injuries. Clowney, I think it was on Sunday, was placed on the COVID list. Despite what he said, they'd have to cart him off the field, I think. Myles Garrett had a bad groin injury that took him out of the game. And I don't know, again, you want him out there for your playoff run, but at the same time, do you really want to be risking it with a guy like that? So that remains to be seen. And Takk McKinley is going to be out for the year. Unfortunately, he tore his Achilles.
That guy has no luck whatsoever, does he?
Yeah.
Since he's been in the league, he has been just, man.
So the Browns, I think it's the first Saturday game. It's around 3:30 Eastern or so. They're going to take on the Green Bay Packers here. So knowing this whole mess that they have on their defensive line, Do any of these potential backup players interest you in terms of what you've seen from them so far this year? And, we're talking deep sort of guys here. I think it Sheldon Day had a nice game for him. We got Jordan Elliott and Malik Jackson. There's a blast from the past, and guys like Porter Gustin, who honestly I had not heard for before I started looking this stuff up. Joe Jackson got some snaps. It's a murderer's row of yuck, but any interest from anyone here that you've seen? And we'll go to you, Johnny. Any of those names do anything for you at all?
No.
Nothing.
No. TLDR, no. There are other guys that are coming off COVID IR that you can grab just in the last few weeks. Lawrence, Gregory, Montez Sweat. There's talks that Darius Smith is coming back to practice recently or soon. Davenport's healthy again. He had a great week. Like, there are much better options out there. I'm not touching these guys. No.
James?
I mean, I'm the resident Browns fan, and I want to see all of the optimism, but why would I touch anyone here unless I'm in a 20-man, 40-man roster league? If I'm, shooting for literally any playing time, then sure, I'll go and add one of these guys. But if I have any sort of options, no, I'm not going to try and figure out what's going on a Myles Garrett, Devian Clowney, Takk McKinley list defensive line. It's going to be not good. There's going to be not a lot of options. And if someone does rise up, there's no way in hell you're going to predict it. So, yeah, I don't want to touch this at all. And I'm sad that I have to talk about it in this sad way.
We don't talk about the Browns that often. I figured I'd throw it in here and see what you thought. But, Gary, it seems like you're feeling about the same.
Yeah, I mean, they've covered it, and on paper – Green Bay over the last 5 weeks have allowed in the bottom third across the line to defensive linemen. So, no, nothing there worth it. Too risky. There should be better plays out there.
Fair enough. Moving on. There's going to be another deep dives that probably fall into the Josh Woods bucket, but they're names that have popped up here due to injuries and COVID, and some of these deep leagues you're going to have to stretch, especially in dynasty leagues where those rosters are usually larger. Out of nowhere here, we had Denver linebacker Jonas Griffith with his first career start, 79% snap share. He had 8 solos, an assist, and a tackle for a loss. He was the other guy with Baron Browning there, sort of in the middle for them. First off, James, had you heard of him before this week at all? And secondly, on top of that, going against the Raiders, I know you don't generally play in those deeper leagues, but is he someone you have looked into and have any sort of faith in starting again if need be?
While you were saying that, I was trying to think of a real witty way to say I had heard of him, but I couldn't come up with it. And no, I have absolutely no clue who he is. Secondly, again, if I'm just desperate for snaps, sure, I will plug him in, but I'd like to say I learned something from Woods this past week and going to go, no, I'm not going to just claw at something in the playoffs when I think that there's some nice upside. And that's when I thought Woods had a great matchup. Do I think the Raiders are a bad matchup? No, not necessarily, but I'm not chomping at the bit like I was for the Lions. So again, if you're forced to go and look at the waiver wire and go, well, this guy has the highest snap count of available players, maybe I go add him. Well, you're not really making a decision. You're forced on that decision by not having any other options on your waiver wire. So, yeah, go at it. If you have choices, you should not be making this as your choice.
Johnny?
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, I am in some crazy deep leagues where I've had to look at this, but it's entirely dependent on Kenny Young, who concussion. So he's probably back this week. So if Kenny Young plays, the Jonas brother does not, and the point is moot. So
yeah, neither one of them are waiver wire options for me this week against Oakland. I have no Kenny Young's not really done anything there.
Nothing.
I mean, Baron Browning's not bad. If I had to shoot for one, I'll probably go with Browning if I really wanted to in a deep league. But it's just not that solid on paper that I'm hoping I could go somewhere else.
So it sounds like I'll go to each of you on this, but let's assume that Jonas and even the next guy here that we're going to be talking about here, Garrett Wallow for the Texans. Let's say you hear before game time that they're both starting. It's a relatively deep league and they're available, and a guy like KJ Wright is available too, who's going to be starting. Are you going to stick with the veteran, sort of the known commodity, or do you play more of the look at your matchup and your opponent and say, hey, do I need to swing for the fences here, or do I want to go for that just, steady 8 to 10 points that Wright would probably end up getting?
That's a great question, how you ended it there. I mean, it's all in your perspective. So are you swinging for the fence or are you not? So I'm going to reflect on the league that I lost. All right, folks. So COVID had knocked me out. It's a deep league. I needed I think I actually had backup. I had Ronnie Harrison and Delpit or whatever his name is. And then both of them, I got scared, So I went ahead and I went looking for somebody. And the only person out there was Woods. I don't believe either one of those two ended up playing, right?
Harrison and Delpit, no, it was a third guy
right.
I'd never heard of. Yeah.
So I'm looking, and the only thing is Xavier Woods, which was the guy that dropped him. But I looked at the matchup on paper, and it looked like shit to me. And I was like, all right, I was already a 50-point underdog, folks. So I'm like, okay, all right, here's where I go stupid. All right. So I go pick up Jalen Hawkins, right? Here's where I go. Don't do this, folks. I put a tweet out, a post out. Don't do this. Just watch and laugh. This is probably the best way. This is a deep league, and I can't advise people to make these moves. And I make sure I tell them that, but I have to tell everybody because it's just stupid. Anyways, so I put Jalen Hawkins in. He ended up getting 4, but he had a matchup. He got 4 points. Woods got 4 points, but he had a matchup that was completely at the other end of the scale when you look at it on paper compared to what Woods had. And Woods have been doing really well, don't get me wrong, but when the MSR, I know from tracking him and making him a waiver wire claim for Gridiron Ratings members and stuff, if the MSR was that bad, that means, or if the team was not one to throw down the field, I guess you could say, throw out a couple little things. But either way, I did not like that a lot. So I went swinging for that fence. So it's really I think that there is a way to logically use that. If I'm looking at it and I've got a named guy that I think is going to be solid, but I think there's no thinking. Either that flyer does have a really good chance in a strong matchup or he doesn't. So you better know, like I know one's low solid, one's not, or strong, if they're allowing a lot of points to a safety. And then he makes a good flyer over somebody like Woods. It wasn't. But if you don't know that, go with the name. Go with the name guy that's consistent. Just consistency matters. There are different level of owners managers. I use that term correctly.
You're
Sorry
canceled.
about that.
You've been
Yes.
canceled.
Yeah, I apologize, folks. But either way, when it comes to it, there's different level of managers. If you're one of those standard kind of players, and you're not that super deep on IDP, stick to what you know. Stick with the name of the player that you think, look, they always show what their average is for each game. You know what I mean? So, and more likely that flyer is not, if he's a flyer in a swing for the fence, he's probably not going to get high average. Figure it out that way. But if you got the right information, say you're one of the Gridiron Ratings members, I'm going to knock on wood here, you're going to know. Go look. You can see if he's got a strong one. I try to note it in there, but for those deep leagues, I'm addicted to deep leagues. Shallow leagues are, I don't know. I just everybody's got a bunch of IDP. What, James? Getting defensive on me?
I'll get defensive on your love of deep leagues. As a person who loves putting out deep league rankings, it sounds very contradictory for me to say I don't like deep leagues, but I like leagues where decisions have to be made by all owners. In deep leagues, often you're just chasing any potential future on-field action. You're not even necessarily, good at finding things. You're just the first to find them. I like leagues where you have to decide, do I need to cut this guy because he's out 2 weeks and go add somebody, or do I not? Do I hold on to Calvin Ridley this season because he may or may not be coming back? I want leagues where you're constantly forced to make decisions, and they're not easy decisions. So give me a more complex league, a contract dynasty league, to self-plug myself like I love to do. But give me something like that, something where you have to think, and you're going outside the box versus a deep league, which is just volume. I don't want to go volume. I'm sorry to our deep league listeners. I'm here for you. I pay attention. I understand them. But that's not my cup of tea anymore. I've been there, done that.
Well, I can tell you, as that deep league fan, you don't bother me. You enjoy yourself there, man. I'm glad to hear.
Wow.
I mean, realistically, I'm so out of touch with it, so it works well.
It's been a while since we've been actually getting defensive on this show.
Yeah.
It's nice to see a little spunk here late
John,
in the season.
End of the season, we're all upset we aren't going to win a championship in every league.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm a little edgy, okay?
Variety is the spice of life, gentlemen. That's the true answer here, right? So I've got some that are deep, some that are shallow. James, you would love this league. I'm going to get you an invite next year. I'm in a free agent frenzy league. There is no bench, and it's full IDP super flex. You're cutting guys like CMC every, during
that
week.
is.
Wow.
It's
that's my
insane.
dream.
Oh, that sounds so. No, thank you.
No, Gary, I'll cook one up. I'll
Gary
invite
doesn't
all you
need a
guys.
heart attack
Yeah.
here.
We are going to suck James in. I don't care if I got to pay his entry fee myself. I'm getting in one of these deeper leagues.
Gary, I do want to say I think the Hawkins
hate
problem
me.
is you jinxed yourself, because I know you threw out a couple tweets early in that game when Hawkins was showing up. And
Oh,
didn't do
And
anything.
Yeah.
You know something? I'll talk about him a little bit here when we get to the waiver wire conversations.
All right. I'm just saying I think you jinxed yourself on that one.
Yeah,
Whenever
probably
someone starts doing well, I'm afraid to tweet anything, because I'm like,
Yeah.
he's just going to do nothing the rest of this game, and I'm going to blame myself for the rest of my life.
And you're right. It was just another stupid mistake I made this week.
The other guy I mentioned here, and again, it sounds like probably not a whole lot of interest, but maybe a bit more. Garrett Wallow, 94% share for Houston with Camu and Christian out. Neville Hewitt was the other guy who had shown up a little bit even before this. But the Chargers are Week 16 opponent, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, but I don't think that they're a great matchup for linebackers here.
It's not. I mean, there's an advantage to any Houston linebacker. Okay, even when the matchup's poor, usually they're solid enough. Okay,
Yes,
so
because they spend 40 minutes on defense every week.
Yeah, that's pretty much what that boils down to. Volume does matter in that situation. So, right, James? I'm just messing with you, man. So, anyways, it's pretty simple. It's pretty cut and dry. I'm not chasing Garrett. I hope that there's not like some league. I guess there might be some league that you might consider Garrett, but I think realistically the numbers are low enough that the only one I'd be interested in possibly would be Hewitt, just because he's going to get the most of the snaps. So but if Kirksey and Hill are both in, there's still only going to be so much production, so it might be a little bit rough. They might be, if they're both capable of getting about the same amount in a matchup like this. So, I mean, they're probably serviceable. You probably could get the job done in a deeper league, but either that or one's going to go off and one doesn't. So, there's risk there. If the production's not there, they just can't fabricate it. So just keep that in mind. I can't see either one. If one of them has a really strong game, the other one did shit. Is basically what I'm trying to put across.
Yeah, there's a lot of if-then waivers this next week. That's the problem, right? If this, then that, right? And it's not cut and dry anymore. Not with all this COVID stuff. Like, you got to track everything.
Hell, it wasn't before we came into COVID. It's been a stupid year.
No, it has been. You're right, but it's real bad right now. Like, at least the value is at least knowing the order of operations. So if something happens, you can pounce and you can be on it, and that's all you can do.
Don't do honey to-do lists this Sunday morning before the game.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll say this. We were talking earlier about trying to find some late season value. Garrett Wallow, he's a rookie. Nobody's seen him before. He showed up. He had a very nice game. Maybe he's someone you want to go and add and see for the future. Or probably what I would do is I'd be selling the heck out of him right now. he just loaded up on Jacksonville, which, granted, Houston plays them twice a year. Next year, they probably will be another great matchup. But do I think that he's going to have any sort of consistency next year? No. Do I think Houston will probably bring in someone else? Yes. So maybe it's a sell high versus add high, but I'd probably want to divest here for the same reasons you guys said. There's no reason to say, yes, I'm locked in, I like this. It's if and then.
James, you're not one of those guys that goes and picks up a guy that just went off and then start offering him everybody in your league for a sixth round pick, right? You're not that guy. No. Please tell me you're not.
In my oldest league, that is known as being a TJ because that's what TJ does. And I will say this, I am not a TJ.
All right.
But in a world where I'm in a deeper league, which, Gary, you love so much, and he's sitting on my bench or in my red shirt slot just taking up space, maybe I do offer him around now. But weeks 1 through 14, no, I haven't offered, and I'm not going to go add him to then trade him. I might have already added him because I'm in a deeper league, or I can add him and then ship him over to, say, I don't know, someone in the playoffs who lost 3 guys to COVID. That's a very unique situation. But by and large, he's someone who I might want to try and sell out of based on this good game versus trying to project forward additional good games.
I just had this wave league thing going with you, James. I want you to understand that these deep leagues that I got, they're deep bench, all right? They're like 11 defensive starters, eight offensive guys, right? Now, wait a minute. But the bench is only 8 players. So there is plenty of rotation and waiver wire action. I just want to be clear. We don't play those deep leagues that has 20 bench places so that, there's no action and there's no decisions to be made. The way that it's set up at this form, I love it. Because for the fact is that you got to stay on top of it if you're going to win. Wouldn't you agree, Kraig?
Yeah, I do. The deep league that I've been in the longest, that one that I've talked to you about, that has a huge bench, but still because you're starting so many people each week, you still have to go find those guys, especially in a time like now where, Ryan Neal is a guy I had to go, digging for that. Well, Adams is out. I need to find a safety here or defensive back, whatever. He was still out there because people weren't paying attention, threw him into a lineup, So I think it all depends on how much that starter to bench ratio is what's going to help you determine when there's this many problems with injuries, health, whatever it is, how much activity you're going to end up having on that waiver.
Yeah.
I'll say this, that does sound far more appealing than a deep bench league where there's no action.
That's good because you're going to be playing in one next year.
At the same time, I will say I'm a little lukewarm on it solely because if it's a league where you definitely are going to be caught up with injuries, therefore you're definitely going to have to be digging, well, you're definitely going to have to dig. I want a league where, in theory, I can mold my roster to end of season. I've built a very beautiful roster. I know it's unlikely. I know it doesn't really happen hardly ever, but I want that potential light at the end of the tunnel. Leagues where you're going to be digging no matter what. It's a chore at my age. I'm an old man now. I don't want to be digging every week. I want to find the gold early on and then just sit.
Yeah.
The youngest guy in the chat saying he's an old man by now. Jeez.
Right. John, you all right over there, man? Hey, I'll tell you what, John, I don't think you've ever been in one of my MFL leagues, have you?
No, I was in that salary cap when I traded you Jesse Bates for your playoff run the year you won it as a favor.
I need to get you an IDP incentive, man. It's a flagship now.
Yeah, I'm in. I like MFL. I'm down.
Yeah. Well, I think I got a couple of people. It's a 16-team league. I think I got a few people that's not coming back. So we'll see about that. Knocking on the door.
Well, winding down here for the night. Johnny is our guest. We're going to go to you here first. Is there anyone, since most of these names that we talked about that showed up out of nowhere, we didn't have a whole lot of interest in, any in your sort of average standard type of league guys that you're finding out there that you'd have interest in for this week for a waiver pickup? I know it's league specific highly, but
no, it definitely is. I'd say the guy that I added that was my most important guy, I'm just filling space while I look here, by the way, is probably KJ Wright, to be honest with you. That's the one I feel the best about because Perryman and Diablo are binged up. Littleton's been displaced. That opens the door for KJ Wright. he has been an instrumental part of so many title runs in my, 20 plus, 20 years playing this IDP. Like, he was just a rock solid linebacker year in, year
I'm
out for over a
shocked that he
decade.
didn't go in there as a full-time guy.
That was, remember at the start of the season, a lot of us thought that too. Like,
Mhm.
oh, he's a starter.
Yeah,
He's a
no
starter.
brainer.
Yeah, no brainer. And now he's finally getting his opportunity. I think that could be really huge for the last few weeks this season. That's my favorite waiver wire this week.
James,
Any
anyone
more?
off the top of your head?
Last week I decided to go out on what I didn't think was a very big limb and say go add Jordan Lewis, as he's going up against the Giants and Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm and whatever other thing that they put back there at quarterback. And that worked out pretty well. I know he had a pick and he did some other nice little things, and he was a very good stream. So I will add back to that and say go and add yourself a defensive back on the Philadelphia Eagles and hope that that's the one who gets the interception or interceptions or multiple interceptions, because I don't believe in those New York Giants quarterbacks. There's going to be some turnovers, and playing math, going with the odds. I don't know who they are. I haven't done the research yet, but I'll go snag whoever it is who looked good after tonight.
Gary, you got a name to throw out there?
I might have a few. That's it. Anybody else want to? You guys got any more before I rattle down my list?
Yep.
Nobody else popping to mind? All right. Of course, I'm gonna blow Ernest Jones's horn again, folks. Again, I told you last week. All right, we got him back on our radar when he finally got this going. He had a great night tonight. At least I don't know what the numbers were, but he scored 17 points. You don't score 17 points in my league unless you did something. So he apparently did okay. And he's got another strong win against Minnesota next week. Let's see, Christian Wilkins. He's got New Orleans. He's got a strong win in there. Saints are actually allowing a lot of points on the inside. We know why, because Tyson Hill is running the damn ball, and that's all they can do. Then he's got another strong win versus Tennessee in 17, by the way. You might have seen Kamaro Curl hit the waiver wires because he had COVID. This might not be a deeper league. This is a mixture of people, folks. So
Yep.
Shallow or deep, I don't know. Anyways, get him back on your roster if he's healthy, because it's strong against Dallas this week. And then after that, it's solid against Philadelphia. I think he did all right. He kind of carries his own little upside right now. Plus, that defensive line, I think, is still kind of shaky. They are getting Sweet back, right? I think so. But that might help.
Montez Sweat?
Huh?
Montez Sweat?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he had a sack tonight. He had like a 16-point game. He's back. Yep.
Sweet. So he's back in there. Hey, he got a sack. At least he got a sack, because he wasn't doing that before he got hurt, right?
Yeah.
Not much. Let's see. So yeah. Let's go with John Johnson. This might not be a shallow league at all. Just that he's not been serviceable that much, but he's actually got a pretty strong matchup this week against the Packers. Over the last 5 weeks, have been like top 10, allowing points to the. And you got to think about that defensive line situation. That the bunch of backups taking on a tough O line apparently that's turned around, started. Protecting the edge. See, Charles Harris just came off a defensive lineman or outside linebacker. If you got an edge play, Charles Harris up in Detroit, he had a really nice game this past week, if I've seen right, and he's got another solid matchup against Atlanta. I wouldn't expect him. I can't remember. I think he got like 19 points in that league or something. I'm sorry, folks. I don't have the guy's stats. You looking that up, Kraig? Maybe.
Not at the moment, but I can get it for you.
No, that's all right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
He had a very nice game, though. He had at least one sack, and I think he had a couple tackles for a loss in there.
Right. Chris Wormley, folks, this week, been preaching that dude, and he's got a decently solid matchup against Kansas City, but he's going to have to get something off the edge. So he's actually kind of like an interior defensive lineman, but it seems like that when the MSRs favor the edge in the contest he's in, he actually performs better than when it is higher in the IDL department or the inside numbers. So anyways, he should be okay. I would look more at Wormley this week as a deep play. You probably will find some better plays. I'm avoiding. I don't know. Now I can't say this so much. I was thinking about avoiding JOK against the Packers. But after finding out how the defensive line is, I can't actually say that I'm going to avoid him. But he was one that I was a little bit concerned about. And I'm sitting Grady Jarrett. I know he's been bouncing up and down, helping a lot of people out along the way. But versus Detroit has no run game. But, however it matters, they don't allow a lot of points to the interior defensive line at all. So Grady Jarrett will probably get his, but it's going to be because he's a beast and not because of the matchups there.
You're asking about Harris. So, yeah, his game, 7 solos, 5 assists, 3 TFL, and 1.5 sacks. So he had a monster game this past week against Arizona.
Yep. Let's see.
All right.
I want to see if I had any revenge on you in that sleeper league. Because I think I had Charles Harris in there, Kraig.
You beat me, and I pulled I think our friend of the show from Thursday night, Dynasty Trip, made the mention. He did the same thing I did, and I had Gibson of the Bears, the linebacker, in against you.
Yeah, the matchup was right. The matchup was right. He didn't do much, though, did he?
He did nothing, and then the whole being busy wasn't a honey to-do list. It was a 5 kids wanting lunch list. I didn't get Jeffrey Simmons in time from being out the prior week. So,
well, you knocked me out of the money league. How'd you do in that one?
I won. I'm in the championship in that one. So
jackass. Oh, excuse me.
I've been called worse, and I'll be called worse again.
So I don't want to hear you whining about the sleeper league. Hey, man, I'm going to shut up now. John, I want to appreciate you joining us again, man.
Yeah, no worries. I'm on vacation this week. It was a pleasure. Good to see you guys, and hope you guys bring home some titles. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and
so when are you moving out my way?
We made it through another season. February.
All right.
Yeah. So Akron, Cleveland area. I'll hit you up. We'll do lunch or something.
Oh yeah.
How about the Hall of Fame instead? You can show me that.
Yeah, I think they've redone it since the last time I was there, which was probably like in late '90s. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yep. Sweet.
James, you have any final words for us tonight here? So we're winding down.
I mean, I kind of hit this topic a lot, but it's a topic I really like to point out. Me and Gary, we kind of went back and forth today and got a little defensive on our league favorites. But most importantly, you need to make sure you're in a league that you like. You need to make sure you're in a league that you have fun. If you're not enjoying yourself doing this, I highly recommend scale back, downsize, maybe take a year off, do whatever you need to do, because you should be happy. You shouldn't be dying to make your 45 lineup updates because you have so many teams and you're hustling and bustling and you're not enjoying it. Maybe you are, then keep doing it, but enjoy this. This is fun. This is not something that you do to make money necessarily. Obviously, that's the goal. We want to all one-up our friends and our colleagues in our leagues, and we want to make money. But if you lose money, you go, well, I'll get it next year. You don't get upset over it. You don't need to play beyond whatever your means are. You need to play for fun. You need to watch football and enjoy football, and just kind of don't lose sight of that. If you lose this week or next week or the week before, understand that it's about fun. There's only one person who wins every year. It's a zero-sum game. Obviously, keep trying to do it. We're all trying to do it. Be annoyed when you don't do it, but also enjoy the ride there. Don't just get stuck on the negative aspects. Enjoy everything. Just have fun. I feel like I'm a kindergarten teacher, but just enjoy what you're doing.
John, get your crayon out of your mouth. Kindergarten.
Crayons in the mouth is one of the least worst things you can have happen in a kindergarten room.
I can only imagine.
Back in the day, before between undergrad and graduate school, I substitute taught all grades from kindergarten through high school at 2 school districts. And let me tell you, you want to see just spectrum of life, kindergarten through high school substitute teaching. That's something for you.
I bet that's pretty wild.
But anyway, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Thank you for watching us on YouTube. Make sure you throw any questions that you have during the week there. We'll be monitoring it. You can find all of us on Twitter. Our Twitter handles are below. Hit that like button, subscribe, get the notifications, and make sure you go over to gridironratings.com. Check out everything Gary and James have. And Johnny, you're over at IDP, guys, correct?
Yes, sir.
So go over there and check him out. I know he's always answering questions on Twitter if you have any too. So
go check
thank
his
you, guys.
audio monster out, folks.
Thank you, Gary.
A beast.
And we're back Thursday night. Host JJ Wenner with Gary for the weekend primer at 9 p.m. Eastern on this same bet channel, same bet place. So for all of us here, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you have a great night and success in your next week here. And we will see you guys next time.